Hello everyone, welcome to the Peaceful Palette Art Lesson series. I am Noelle Rollins and today we are going to be drawing this ear with professional grade colored pencils. I will be working from this Caran d'Ache Luminance 6901 set. It's around $50 or $60. I got mine from dickblick.com. And the fun about getting this exact set is all of the different features I'll be working on through this whole series will come from this set. So for every eye, ear, nose, mouth, I will do one lesson that includes these colored pencils. So once you have them, you'll learn how to do all of this with the exact pencils you have. So cozy in, get comfortable. I've already sketched out just a really rough sketch of the ear. If you need help doing that, you can go back to one of the other videos earlier where we showed how to do the line drawings of the ear and then also how to shade ears just to get a better basic understanding. So to start off, I always like going over the darkest points of what I'm working on with the dark color. So I'm using the dark brown here. And just small circular strokes, medium to light pressure. I like doing this because it immediately establishes some of the darker tones that we'll have in the drawing so that we can start playing off the light versus the dark. And then simply for the basic fact that it's easier than to see the lines. If I layer over many colors, it gets a little harder to see where those lines were. This also can start to show if you were doing a one-colored sketch, where you could begin with that and the shading process. What I love about these colored pencils is they go on so smooth. It has just this buttery way that it melts into the paper, which I love. I'm using Bristol board, which is just simply a little bit thicker, smooth paper. But use whatever paper you have. I'll list both of the colored pencils and the paper in the comments, just so that you can, in the description, so that you can get them if you would like, or give as a gift to someone you know that likes to draw. The video before this, we did a ear with a basic set of Crayola colored pencils. So it's fun to see the differences and how both of them we go through and we layer color after color to really build up these rich, multi-dimensional colors. But you can see the smoothness with the professional ones. It just make it a little quicker, a little bit easier to work with, a little bit richer in saturation. And you'll see at the end where we can go in with some very fine details and capture some of the pores, the little markings on the skin. So what I like to do when I'm drawing like this is I either put on music. I have the 5-hour Pride and Prejudice version that sometimes I'll put in the background because I find it so calming. I'll make some tea or a protein drink, something that just I can sip on, some ice water, and feel like I can settle into my space and be comfortable and relaxed and let my mind fully immerse into the experience I'm having. Which I don't know about for you, but for me, I'm a planner. I'm always thinking ahead what needs to be done. Caught in worlds that haven't yet happened, which is part of life. It's critical, but it sure feels really good when I can allow myself to simply focus on exactly what I'm doing in that moment. And drawing does that for me. One thing I like about colored pencils is it's so easy to pack a drawing pad and colored pencils if you're going away for a weekend, or if you're going on vacation, going to the cabin, or just simply have them in a room of your house that doesn't need a giant art setup, where you can pull them out and just sketch for a little bit, calm yourself if you're needing to, recenter, capture the scenes around you. You can find how that practice can work best for you. Some people like to sketch daily, others just when they're inspired. There's no right or wrong answer, just simply finding a way that you connect to the art and find inspiration around you, which is all about being in a place of gratitude and being present. So I like to make sure that my pencils are very sharp, coming in here with just a little bit more pressure, as you can see, and just picking up a little bit more of the brown, where once I got a base layer on everything, then I could see, okay, these areas need a little bit more depth. And I talked about this in the ear drawing videos, but if you're doing a portrait of someone, you really want to pay attention that everyone's ears look different. Some have lobes that hang down, some have different shapes to them, how the folds are. Some stick out further from the head, some are tighter to the hairline. So those are things you want to make sure match the subject of who you're drawing. You never want to just pick out a random ear for a reference photo and then pop it into your portrait. If at all possible, you make sure that you somewhat know what their ear looks like. I'm using the side of the pencil here and just very lightly, I'm putting no pressure at all, just simply letting it rest on the paper while I move it back and forth. And so already you can see this could very easily be a monochromatic. Oh, we're done for a single colored sketch. We get to keep going today. I'll keep marking the different colors as I use them in the order I use them over here, so you can follow along, or look at this video later, or pause it at the end of the video and see that order again. So I am just going over the complete ear. Typically you can get away with this with the yellow for almost any feature. The ones you have to be careful is if there is true white highlights, maybe on the eyes, maybe the tip of the nose, where you don't want to just assume that everything has this base color. Okay, so we have color 583 here, violet pink. It has sort of a dusty rose color, and it really just helps to deepen that pinkishness without being too flowery pink into the skin tone. After we finish this ear series, the next 4 videos are going to be all about how to achieve different skin tones We're going to go through and do 4 different skin tones ranging from light and fair into medium olive to brown to dark brown. And I'm going to do that with the basic colored pencils over 2 videos, and then I'm going to spend 2 videos doing it with this exact set that you're watching here. So if you're having any problems on how to build up the different skin tones, you're definitely going to want to check those videos out, and really just, I want them to leave you feeling confident that you can layer into whatever skin tone that you are looking to accomplish. There are so many beautiful, lovely shades of skin tones in the world, and it's really such a privilege to get to capture them in art and celebrate them. Knowing how to capture the different colors also, within every one of those skin tones is variations where there's shadowing, age marks, freckles, moles, wrinkles, things that require you to do beyond just a simple flat color. So all of that helps build those skills as well. So you can start to see already some of this ear coming into focus. This is color 135, this deep blue color. And blue is a little tricky. You want to use it. It plays off the red in a really lovely way, but you want to be careful how you use it also so it doesn't leave a bruised look. So I always say start with less and work your way up. And it can leave it looking a little strange when you're midway, so you have to trust the process that we're going to come out and fill out the range of colors still, so that it doesn't look like bruising, which right now you could say that almost looks like bruising in certain areas. I like to come in with this blue and just reaffirm some of those brown areas, kind of smooth them out. If you've watched some of my past videos, you know that we rescued a kitten a couple months ago, and this kitten is in this stage right now where it's learning how to climb things, and it just is pouncing on everything and running from place to place. And so sitting here doing this voiceover is hilarious. How many times I have to stop because the cat is hanging from the chair next to me or harassing the other cat or the dog. It's so adorable, though. And you might hear pouncing and running, little kitten footsteps in the background. I was thinking it would be really funny to show. Let me tell you what color this is. It's color 580. It's a pretty bold red. Really beautiful pure red. To show the silent day and everything's peaceful and quiet, and then you're like, oh, it's a good time to do a voiceover, and you put your headphones on, and suddenly I have helicopters or planes circling overhead, and the dog starts howling at something outside, and someone shows up at the door to deliver a package. It's so funny because every time it feels like that's what happens. So we're just going with it these days. I love the look, especially when you look close up, that this red can start to add in. It pinkens up the skin. It, especially at the end, sometimes I'll go in with this red and do really light, tiny little lines. And it's little, kind of the broken blood vessels in the skin we all have. And I try to do it very delicately so it doesn't look grotesque or overwhelming. But just in a few areas, it can show this realistic part where when you can show a few pores, a few freckles, a few little areas like that, it gives this impression of detail throughout the whole drawing without actually having to go through and do every detail. And it's fun to play around with that and experiment. One nice thing about working from this set of colored pencils is you have the same pencils every time you go to reach for it without being overwhelmed with choices. So that later I can take these same colors and do the skin in front of the ear, part of the neck below the ear, and have them match. When I first started working in colored pencils in 2019, I bought, I think it was the 200-piece set. I forget how many it had in it. It was a lot, maybe 100 pieces, I can't remember. But I would notice if I was doing more than one person in a portrait, sometimes I had a hard time matching their color tones. And so that's something I had to work through and really start to do little tricks. Like, I maybe wouldn't do the colors on the paper, of course, but I might have a piece of scratch paper next to me where I write the colors as I do them, just to simply help me recreate that look. Or I set them in front of me in the order I use them, so that as I do the next feature on the face or the next person, if their skin tones are similar, I have those pieces and colored pencils already. And it can really help in keeping things consistent. With any of us, our hand might be darker than the underside of our forearm or our neck, different than the apples of our cheeks. But you can still have the basic colors to then create lighter and darker areas within that. So just really embracing the circular pencil strokes here. Just always slow and easy. Being patient. And don't be surprised if you end up taking a lot of time sharpening pencils to keep them sharp. This is the terracotta color, number 44. This is one of my favorite colors for working with portraits. Just has such a perfect mixture of browns and oranges. When you're doing a portrait, so I always go through first and sharpen every pencil. There's a certain way you can sharpen colored pencils so they're actually sharper or at like a longer tip, so they can achieve a sharper point. You can get them from art stores or online. You would just look up like the colored pencil sharpeners, and they have them where you can do it in like 2 steps by hand, or if you're doing a lot of drawing for, I think it was under $20, they have a electric sharpener, and it has a way you can rotate through to have different size pencils. But what that does is it gives you this super long tip, which for this situation, for most of the drawing wouldn't matter as much. But when you're coming in and doing hyper realistic, or you're working with eyelashes or little peach fuzz and you want a sharp tip, you're going to be sharpening a lot. So just kind of have that expectation going in that that's part of the game with colored pencils. There's a couple colors that I have found it easier to just, after I've done now dozens of portraits, there's a few that I will have 2 or 3 of that same color, all sharpened, ready to go, just to help me not break my concentration so many times. And then when I need to sharpen them, I stop and just sharpen all of them. The same thing with blacks, with whites, a few of the browns or skin tones. So really light pressure here. Just going through and adding this little depth of color. So this is color 212, it's a green. Green is on the opposite side of the color wheel from red. And what it's really good at in these situations is coming in and muting the red a little bit so it's not so in your face. Green is a great way to add the shading and shadowing into those skin tones without using what some of us were taught early on where you use black to shade. Well, that's not true. The real trick is coming in with some other colors to play off of and use the color science to really help you achieve the look you want. So already you can just, every layer just adds a little bit more depth here, a little bit more realisticness. Now, many times you can almost get to this point and be like, yep, we're good. Depending on your goal, that might be completely fine. That is color 115, like a plum purple, bright grape color. If you're looking for that extra level of realism and depth, then keep on going with us. But honestly, much of my life, if I would have done an ear to this level of detail, I would have been like, we're pumped, we're good. So just this mixture of really light lines, circular. It's fun sometimes coming in with these other colors and starting to create other shapes that maybe weren't justified with the dark brown, but need to be accented and shown. This is more of a peachy color. It's 68. So I'm kind of just coming in here and everywhere except for the parts that will be brightly accented with lighter than this color. We're going to come in here and just lay a coating over the whole thing. And I like this because it's sort of blending and blurring some of those other colors that we've done already together. But it's also just giving it the overall fair Caucasian skin tone that we're needing for this portrait. So we're back in with that red again. Doing a little bit, you can see I'm using more pressure here. I'm going to start filling in some of this redness that is in this person's ear and really start to capture that. You can see how much more pressure I'm pushing on the pencil here. And then coming in a little lighter here as we get into the lobe, and then this inner ear, it's going to darken up again. And I have a reference photo next to where I'm working, and I'm constantly looking back and forth, checking over and over. For you, you can be doing the same with looking at this video, then looking at your paper over and over, your eyes darting back and forth. At any point during the video, you always can pause it, catch up if you need. At this point, I decided just to add a little context around the ear. So you can see, oftentimes that under neck part is slightly lighter. And I'll just fill in as we go here with these extra little parts. And this, of course, how much skin is showing there will depend on the person's hairline, the angle of the ear, and what angle you're looking at the face and head. Their head could be turned so the neck has wrinkles right there. So we're back in with color 212, the green. Again, using more pressure to darken up some of these shadowy parts. So now we're coming in with the bright orange, number 533. And again, we're just going over everywhere other than the lightest points with a really soft pressure on the parts that are lighter, and then I'm putting a little bit more pressure in those shadowed areas. And we can play up this. The orange, of course, is just bringing in both the yellow and red feeling. It helps it layer right into the browns. And I've said this in other videos, but it's important to remember how much detail and time you spend on the portrait can vary. More is not always an option. Sometimes you have one day to do an entire portrait, or an hour or 2 hours. Other times you're okay spending 30, 50, 100 hours on a portrait. How big the portrait you work on can affect how much detail you can fit in there. If you choose to do a really large portrait, it's going to take you a lot longer if you're going to do a lot of detail like this. But also it's an incredible opportunity to really get in there and have fun with every whisker or eyebrow, every wrinkle, every pore. It's an incredible opportunity once you build up these skills to have some fun with it. So I'm doing white over most of this, and I'm pushing with decent pressure. It's sort of burnishing the colors together. While you're learning this, I always recommend doing either just piece by piece, like just an ear, just an eye, so you don't have the pressure of all the areas of the face where you have to fill in with skin textures and tones and match, and instead you could just focus on the fun parts. So here we are with the dark brown again, the same one we started with, where you can just have fun with the parts that are the most obvious. We'll just say that. You know what? I made a mistake. This is black. Sorry about that. So I'm just coming in on a couple areas here. As you can see how sharp that pencil was. Doing little circular strokes here. I love just doing these little dot by dot by dot. It takes a little time, but if you can stipple in just a little bit there, it really shows off the pores and the impressions like I was talking about earlier. So there's people that will do incredibly highly detailed portraits, but they'll spend hundreds of hours. And I absolutely love that, but it's not always realistic. And so we need to know what, if our goal is that our friend had a baby and we want to do a really fun portrait of that baby, it may be realistic to plan a couple hours for that. Even 4 or 5 or 6 hours if you want to do this level of detail and really lay out the face and, what you're going to work on. Other times, just a sketchy, light feeling still implies what you want to get across, and the sentiment is there. So it's all up to you, and I just really believe in giving you the tools, learning how to do whatever level you choose to come in with detail. Here we have the buttery yellow color, number 542, so that you can then decide what sort of portrait you want to do. So again, I'm coming in and almost burnishing with this buttery yellow, and I love this effect. It suddenly is taking out the muddiness and just adding this beautiful buttery yellow tone that really fits this ear really well. So now I'm coming in with the mineral spirits. You can use a brush or a cotton swab. I always like to try to do the lighter parts first so I don't drag that darker color into them. And I do, as you can see, I'm doing it kind of with the flow of the ear. Like I wouldn't want to just go back and forth horizontally and blur these colors together. And when you're doing it in person, you can sort of see as the colors blend and meld into the paper more so that there's no paper showing through. And then you also be careful with the dark colors because you can drag them a little bit. So it's always just good to be aware of. And then you can also use rubbing alcohol for this point. But if you do that, you're going to want to wait till it's completely dry for about 15 minutes or so after you do this step before you do any other colors over the top. But what's so great about doing either the mineral spirits or the rubbing alcohol is that it breaks those binders down in the color and allows you to come in then. If you've ever colored with colored pencils and they have that waxy or crayon kind of that effect where you can't get anything else to show up on top of it, this solves that problem. So now I'm able to come in with this white and do little tiny highlights right over this mineral spirit. And the mineral spirits are still wet on the paper, so it's almost allowing this white to just meld right into the paper. It's kind of this little hack. But if you do it with rubbing alcohol, the paper will probably rip right here. So you don't want to do that. Depending on the quality, the impression, all of your beliefs about art, you could also come in here with a white gel pen and do little dots as well. The purists are shrieking at me saying that, and I understand that. But also sometimes it's just for fun, and you just want the effect, and you're not trying to win an award with it. You're not entering into some contest or to prove anything to anyone. So you use whatever tools you have available to achieve the look you have in a way that works for you. But I like showing it here with the white. Another trick is with a tip of a razor blade, you come in and you can do little cuts away, little dots, and that chips a little bit of the surface of the paper away. That also works really well at this point if you were doing peach fuzz. And I do have a past video about that where you can just do little tiny razor cuts, and it pulls that color away a little bit, and it'll look like peach fuzz. This is great too on the hairline where there's those little tiny baby hairs sometimes where the light's reflecting off and they're so tiny a pencil can hardly make that mark. The razor blade works really well for that. I'm going to do another video on that as well coming up. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel and this series yet, please do. I have more videos coming. So this is always, I take this while the mineral spirits are still wet here and just go through and decide, is there anything else I wanted to add? Or do we feel complete with it? Coming in with these little tiny circular strokes, lightening up some of those dark spots with this kind of plummy gray. This color is 94. I realize, well, I love how the ear is turning out. I just can't handle a half-finished neck showing underneath. So I'll just quickly darken that up just a little bit. It's a good opportunity if you're still finishing up on the ear to just keep working on that. Don't worry about the neck part. And kind of come through with the same colors in the same order as we did earlier. Now I'll just come through and burnish that with some white. I just wanted to simply show, like, okay, so obviously here, there's where the hair will be. So that will all fill in. And there we have it, friends. Our finished ear with the professional colored pencils in under 40 minutes. You can pause this video if you need to finish up. Otherwise, I just thank you so much for being here and joining in on this. Leave a comment if you enjoyed this video and give it a thumbs up. And make sure to check out the other videos where we've gone through the other features, the eyes, nose, mouth. I hope you have a really wonderful day. Bye.